We live in incredibly challenging times. Emerging from a dark night of isolation and unrest, of polarization and pandemic, this is a moment of profound moral awakening. And the work is not nearly done. In fact, we're just getting started. IKAR was founded on a core belief that faith communities must be voices of moral courage, sources of spiritual strength, and first responders to injustice and indifference. We believe our Jewish tradition calls us to become agents of social change. And we know that if we really want to build the beloved community out in the world, we need to build sacred community right here and right now. And so we stand in friendship, working for justice with our multi-faith partners and neighbors. We stand in hope because hope is the greatest expression of defiance against politics of pessimism and a culture of despair. We stand in love because we trust in the mysterious power of human connectedness. This is the real work of community, to answer our loneliness with presence, to say amen to each other's Kaddish, and in a world that feels upside down, to remind each other again and again what's right side up. Our ancestors were dreamers. They were driven by an audacious belief that every one of us is created in God's own image. Fueled by that prophetic vision, we lift up a theology today of radical equality because every person deserves to live in full dignity. At IKAR, our work is to co-create a community and a society rooted in justice and love and propelled by our moral imagination. This is our moment. Help us usher in a new day. Hi, everyone, and welcome. First, please forgive us for the technical glitches at the top. I think if this past year has taught us nothing else, we know how radically unpredictable the world can be. I wanted to start today by just telling you about a story that I've been thinking so much about over this past year by Rachel Naomi Remen, an oncologist and healer. She writes about a patient of hers, a young guy whose cancer diagnosis left him, in her own words, full of rage and self-pity. Dr. Remen one day in her office handed him a piece of paper and asked him to draw a picture of his body. And he drew this crude sketch of a vase with a deep crack running through the center of it. And then he angrily drew over the crack with a black marker, tearing the paper and crying. She said that she asked him this one question: "What are you going to do about it?" And he stormed out of her office enraged. Then he came back a year or two later. He said that he had started volunteering in the hospital, and he actually found and fell in love with another cancer patient. And he took that crumpled up picture out of his pocket and he said, "You know, doctor, it's not really finished." And she watched as he grabbed a yellow crayon and he started to draw these thick yellow lines radiating from the crack in the vase to the edges of the paper. "This," he said, pointing to the crack, "this is where the light comes through." It's been a devastating couple of weeks, which landed on the open wound of an incredibly challenging 14 months, which emerged out of a deeply painful several years. We're so raw. We may even be a little bit broken, but we're not finished. We know that there's light coming through the brokenness. It has to, and it will continue to. So today, we're going to take a few moments to celebrate where we found that light coming through, in the hopes that lifting up some of the stories, a few of thousands of stories, we'll see rays of light that will inspire us to look to the future with hopeful hearts. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Rabbi Brous. I feel better already. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to IKAR's annual fundraiser. I'm Matt Price, and here we are, 4 vaccinated Jews hanging out on a Sunday afternoon. No, that is not the name of our new improv troupe, although it would be a great one. This is simply what we are, as we all sort of try and dip our toes back into this quasi-normal world that we now live in. We're all trying to do some of the things that we love to do. Last week, my wife, my daughter, and I went to a restaurant for the first time in 14 months. And honestly, we didn't know how to eat in public. Like, we just forgot. Like, we poured water all over the table and just spilled everywhere, and we couldn't navigate scooping food onto our plates. Just like we just created globs of like bread islands all over the table. And we told the server it was our first time back in a restaurant in a long time. And she totally understood, because we're all just coming out of these dark times. And one of the reasons our family got through these dark times was IKAR. We're also filled with gratitude for IKAR and the strength of our community, a community which has actually grown. Since IKAR went virtual, we have members all over the world. I think my parents were watching in Evanston, Illinois. Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. Everyone here is vaccinated.
Prices?
We're fine. We didn't even hug. It's all good. So I'd like to introduce my friends here today. First of all, Melissa, our fearless CEO, AKA Dark Phoenix. Of course, Rabbi Brous. You may remember her from her Peloton Megillah earlier this year. And Kareem Abai, IKAR board member and the director of our development committee.
As we get started, we wanted to welcome you. Please take a second and put your name in the chat. If you're with us from Facebook Live, let us know where you're at. Okay, let's talk about our IKAR stories.
Oh, yes.
So
what's your 6-word story?
So my 6-word story is I'm Black, gay, and Jewish, and where else would I go but IKAR? I mean, it's the only place to go for me.
Totally. Coincidentally, that is also my IKAR 6-word story. Same thing. It's weird. I'll have to think of a new one. Okay, folks, right now I'd like to throw to IKAR board chair, Ethan Goldstein.
Hi again. Good afternoon, IKAR. Welcome, everyone. I'm truly honored to serve as chair of IKAR's amazing board of directors. I could not be prouder of IKAR and our community, especially at this time. During the pandemic, we've leaned into possibility and opportunity, marrying ancient words and practices to 21st century technology. We now have folks joining us week after week from around the country and indeed from around the world. And amazingly, we've grown in the past year by nearly 250 families, half of whom don't live in Los Angeles. Shout out to our friends in Anchorage, Tokyo, London, Sao Paulo, and Tel Aviv. Many of you have never even been to an IKAR service in person. We can't wait to meet you and schmooze one day over pretzel challah and mustard, a delicacy found at every IKAR Kiddush. And I'm now happy to turn over the program to our incredible CEO, Melissa Balaban. Enjoy the afternoon.
Thanks, Ethan. IKAR's growth has really been remarkable, and it's really about the extraordinary people who are drawn to us and who work with us every day to create what we all experience together. The diversity of our community is truly the greatest blessing. We've even added multiple time zones to our planning, hence the 4 p.m. Pacific time fundraiser.
You know, I keep thinking this year about the last clergy meeting we had in person before the whole world turned upside down last year. We sat together and mapped out multiple options, ranging from limited services with no Torah smooching to small group backyard minyanim. What was really clear to us was that whatever we were going to face, people would need their community. And then in an instant, the safer at home orders came, and all those plans were tossed out the window as we entered this totally unprecedented time and space. We needed to pivot hard and fast. We realized early on that with all the illness and uncertainty, we really needed to keep our people tethered to this world and tethered to one another. We were determined not to let anyone disappear. So I want to give a shout out to our amazing clergy and staff for working so hard throughout this time to build networks of love and connection, to put together a ridiculous number of classes and learning opportunities for adults and kids, to rededicate ourselves to this justice work in an unprecedented time of challenge and opportunity. And of course, to figure out how to create sacred space online for Shabbat mornings and morning minyanim. You know, I have to say that after years of trying to encourage people to turn their computers and their phones off on Shabbat, it wasn't actually easy for me to transition to this, but it also turned out to be an incredible opportunity for me during this time of isolation to see your beautiful faces on Zoom every Shabbat. Plus, I got to go to shul in sneakers for 14 months, which was a kind of pandemic silver lining.
So thank God we figured out how to show up for each other. IKAR played an essential role in our lives this past year.
Yeah, I know. Kareem, I've heard you talk about how IKAR was a place for both spiritual sustenance and also intellectual challenge, and I'm so gratified to hear that. And I think a lot of people have shared that same sentiment.
And speaking of essential, there are particularly phenomenal members that we need to celebrate and thank this year. These folks were on the front line, even when it was riskiest to leave their homes, and who were working in our hospitals and our clinics and providing health care to homeless and other high-risk populations, even at COVID's peak. And to keep it all supplied us with food and everything that we needed to stay home safely with our families and eat constantly, in my case.
Some of us were doing that before the pandemic too.
Fair enough.
I'm kind of a nosher, as you mostly know.
So here are some stories about our essential workers.
I am awed and humbled by the people in our community and beyond who, in acts of incredible courage and grace, left their homes, especially in peak moments, and went out in order to help keep our society running. Doctors, nurses, technicians, security guards, talking about people in food services and agriculture, teachers, caregivers. I hope you can feel our immeasurable gratitude. Thank you.
When I heard about COVID and that the county was setting up shelters for people with COVID, I thought, I have to do that. We had 8 hotels with about an 800-bed capacity. Everything was chaotic. Ambulances sending people, around the clock, not having a system to accept new patients, not knowing how to test anyone, not knowing how close you could get, not having enough PPE. The police won't come because they don't want to be around, they don't want to come to the COVID site, and so there's nothing you can do except for figure out a way to help this person calm down.
Thinking back to March 2020, the beginning was very fast and very surreal. One day I was on a field trip, and the next day I was standing in my classroom putting things in a bag that I thought might be helpful if I was going to teach at home, whatever that possibly meant. School originally closed for 2 weeks, and we were back, I think, 53 or 54 weeks later. So it was a really intense and unexpected beginning. When kids had left that last day, we didn't really know that it was the last day. And so kids didn't have what they like, supplies. Their math workbooks, I remember, was one of the main things we wanted kids to have. And so my partner teacher and I split up all the math workbooks for 5th grade, and we drove them around.
It was like a sudden thing where we were in school one day, and then the next day we said we're closing school. We had a day, I think maybe 2 days to prepare as teachers, and then we were on Zoom. At the time, I had a kindergartner and a 2nd grader, so it also just felt very overwhelming to think about how I was going to manage their learning at home on Zoom. My husband's also a teacher, so neither of us have particularly flexible jobs where we can be on with our kids while we're teaching.
It was definitely challenging. It was just unheard of that we would try to do school from homes on a computer. It's so funny to think of. I had never heard of Zoom. They were like, you're going to use Zoom. I was like, I don't even know what that is.
As a chaplain, my job is to work with patients, let them know that we're here for additional layer of support, just to listen and engage them in a conversation and try to find out what's on their mind. And my job really shifted to doing a lot of staff care, to work with the staff to try to help lower the anxiety. I mean, you could feel the tension in the air walking around the hospital. All of the kind of non-essential folks in the hospital just left. They went home right away. It was changed overnight, so it was very quiet. And I was just trying to help the nurses understand, just to gain some self-compassion right off the bat, that this isn't normal. This isn't what they signed up for.
When we moved to Los Angeles, I started working at the VA in October. Then the winter surge came in, Our patient numbers at the VA increased a lot, and over half of them had COVID. Most of them did okay, but the ones that got really sick were moved to the ICU. And we never knew who would come back to the medical floor and who wouldn't survive. And for COVID patients, I had to wear a mask over a mask, and then a face shield and a gown. And the hardest part with COVID patients was that when their condition worsened, I could no longer say, "You're gonna be okay," because we couldn't promise anything anymore. We just didn't know.
I remember walking through one of the shelters in Skid Row and seeing how crowded the conditions were. This is before masks were being recommended, so people were not distancing, they were not wearing masks, and you knew that when the pandemic hit our population, it would spread like wildfire. That evening, joined the IKAR Men's Circle on a Zoom meeting and just shared that this epidemic was going to hit the vulnerable populations and hit them hard, and that we really needed to get masks. And Tony Gittleson and the other guys from the Men's Circle, they were able to get hundreds, actually thousands of masks donated to our clinic and to the shelters in Skid Row.
One of the bright spots of the past year has been the feeling of support I've had from our local community. People who would reach out and say, "What can we do to help support you?" There were a few examples where organizations wanted to support local hospitals and nurses and doctors who were really doing the holy work that they were doing on the front lines. When they decided to send them care packages, they reached out to us so that we could be the provider. That way they were able to show their support both to us and to those people who were working on the front lines. And I thought that was really nice.
Something that helped me was my IKAR community. The friends that I've made at IKAR and other members from IKAR, they brought snacks and foods and treats and flowers, and they helped with my kids. And it just made it really, I don't know about easy, but comfortable for me to do this.
We feel so connected to the Jewish community in all parts of our lives, and we're grateful for that. I think parents have been very appreciative for teachers during this time, which means a lot.
This idea of having to completely reimagine the way we do things is not new to Judaism. I teach in my 6th grade classes about the destruction of the Second Temple and how the rabbis had to completely reimagine Jewish life. And so I talk about that with my students, about how are we in this moment reimagining Jewish life. And we did it. Like, we figured out how to do tefillah and Zoom, and how to have Zoom seders, and how to continue Judaism during these really challenging times.
Having a strong community and connection and caring and fabric is something that really saves lives. In the places where that community is not as strong, it costs lives.
Even as we continue to break and break and break, we're not broken. Which is to say that we are incredibly resilient as people, and we can endure a lot.
This pandemic has reaffirmed my understanding that whatever disaster comes at you, you can almost always figure out a solution. Anything is possible.
We can make it, we can survive things. Whatever the problem is, we can figure out a solution, we can adapt. And it helps prove that anything really is possible. We just need to figure it out.
To so many others who were out there putting yourselves at risk for all of us, we are so grateful.
We all had a part to play in this saga, but there were people who played especially brave roles, and I'm just eternally grateful for that.
Wow, those were incredible stories. Frontline workers who really made a difference in the lives of our community and our city, who supported us all in just the toughest times during this pandemic.
Yeah, we want to thank every single one of you. Adrian Gumpert, we thank you. Dr. Alan Steinberg, Dr. Alyssa Ognjanowski, Dr. Andrew Roth, Angela Garcia, and Anna Bolk, and Ariella Wenger, we thank you. Aurelio Ayon, Dr. Becky Lewis, Beth Weissman, Dr. Bryna Harwood, Dr. Carlos Lerner, Dr. Karen Bernstein, Kobe Getzik, Dr. Dan Lee, Dana Kimbar, Dr. David Agus, Dr. David Berman, Debbie Unessi, Dr. Deborah Asheim, Dan Messinger, Dina Messinger, Rabbi Dina Trugman, Diana Kramer, Diego Sanchez, Dr. Ellen Rothman, Inshia Daniel, Eva Gletner-Katz, Cantor Francine Chalin, Dr. Diana Reese, we thank you.
We thank you, Dr. Hope Levin, Ezra Yagubi, Dr. Jane Rosen, Jennifer Lieberson, Dr. Jennifer Sidarsky, Jesse Godino, Dr. Jessica Stroik, Josefina Havarin, Josh Pashman, Kamyar Soleimani, Dr. Katie Harder, Dr. Kevin Wayloff, Kiran Shamash, Quasi G, Rabbi Len Miroff, Dr. Lori Silver, Luis Estrada, Marie Alvarado, Maria Garcia, Marina Valtierra, Dr. Mark Benor, Dr. Mark Krieger, Miguel Sanchez, Neil Spears, Dr. Nicole Normand, Norma Ayon, Oscar Baca, Pari Muzahadeh, Dr. Patricia Gordon, Rebecca Berger, Rebecca Weiss, Dr. Sarah Schoenburn, Sheila Hirsch, Dr. Steve Hirsch, Tracy Colite, Dr. Vivian Feintek, Wendy Kaur, we thank you. And we know there are so many more. Thank you. We are so moved for you and your work.
Absolutely. And you can support them all and support IKAR, right? What better way to do that than by bidding on some auction items? Okay, now there should be a link in the chat or somewhere with the auction. So look at those items that are available. And I'm gonna walk through a couple of them right now. Okay, so 3 nights in a tree house in Cabo San Lucas. Hello, remember hotels? I barely do, but I think they were pretty fun. Okay, all right. How about a Shabbat dinner? You can bid on a Shabbat dinner with David Light, Rabbi Brous, and the whole family. Usually that's BYOH, bring your own challah, but no longer, folks. Rabbi Brous has apparently been baking her own challah all pandemic long.
Just hope she's not cooking.
I won't cook.
Okay, I'm not commenting on her cooking skills. I'm just saying the challah apparently is amazing. And what about a pickling class with Rabbi Panitz? How often does a rabbi offer you the chance to make pickles? I don't even know Rabbi Panitz yet, or what it would mean to pickle with a rabbi. But it sounds exciting, and you can bid on it. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many items. They're even auctioning off the tip of an iceberg. We have an IKAR member in Antarctica. It's on there. I'm joking, it's not, but the others are. And all these items were donated as by IKAR members, so all the money goes directly to IKAR. So Melissa, Kareem, could you tell us exactly what the money is going to?
Thanks, Matt. Yes, that's a great question. As the chair of the development committee, I can tell you exactly where it's going. Let's start with our programs. Everything we've all rejoiced in and found strength in throughout the year, our learning sessions, our guest speakers, our justice work, and this is the part that I love. So much about our community, we're all learning about Jewish values, and it's inspiring us to work towards real change in our society. And then there's Shabbat services, daily minyan. We're committed to staying online, even as we return to in-person gatherings pretty soon now. We really have given the community so many opportunities to grow, and now we're all over the world. Well, and all of that really costs some money.
Indeed.
There's so much more. Our funds support so many programs, and we really want to provide love and care to all the members that we have.
And maybe even a new mic for Rabbi Brous. That could really work.
Yes, we need a new mic, for sure.
IKAR is truly a collaborative undertaking, relying on the generous support and personal involvement of some of the most talented and dedicated people I know. As you always say, Brous, this community really needs to be a source of spiritual strength and a voice of moral courage. I know this mission resonates with so many of you, as it has for me for all of these years. So please, folks, we hope you'll help support this community that has inspired you during this time.
This is dedicated to all the real-life heroes. nothing will drive them away. We can beat them just for one day. We can be heroes just for one day. I wish you could swim like the dolphins. Dolphins could swim. But nothing will keep us together. We can beat them forever and ever. How we can be heroes just for one day. Just for one day, oh, we can be heroes. Just for one day.
I love that song, Hillel. It's one of your best. I also love that one you wrote about the yellow submarine. That one's going to take off, I'm telling you. Put that on your next album. Okay. By the way, not to get too personal here, but Hillel provided one of my favorite IKAR moments during the pandemic when he covered some songs for our game night last year. I don't know if you remember that. I tried to get him to cover the Spice Girls. We did like a Name That Tune thing. I tried to get him to sing Spice Girls, but he wouldn't budge, although he did sing for me just a little bit of it over the phone, which was a delight in that low, if you want to be my lover. It was great. And I have to say, if that was an auction item, I would have bid quite a few Dogecoins.
Okay, let's go back to business, Baby Spice. If the stories of our IKAR heroes weren't enough to inspire your hearts and your Venmo accounts, let's see what the community has to say about the incredible support they felt from IKAR this year.
IKAR is a unique community which makes my spirit soar. It's my spiritual home. It's a place where I can get in touch with Judaism and with myself.
I was first attracted to IKAR because of its mission to reclaim a progressive voice in the religious space. Its community and its visionary leadership have kept me coming back.
The community became a lifeline for so many people. They could still go to Shabbat services on Zoom. They could connect with the rabbis and with community members. There have been evening classes, happy hours, lunch and learns.
IKAR folks really do work to live their values, from the smallest choices all the way up to working to make our system and our society more just, all through a Jewish lens.
Every time I leave services, I want to be a better person. That's why I joined Minyan Tzedek, the Social Justice Community Organizing Committee, because I really want to take what we learned from Torah directly into the streets.
It's hard to be Jewish in Boise, Idaho. I had to learn to make challah. In LA, you can throw a stick and hit 10 challahs, but not here. But then IKAR put together all these online programs so fluently that we don't suffer by being far away. They're on the cutting edge of how to connect with your community online.
I joined IKAR back in 2008 when I first moved to LA. I showed up to one of their outdoor picnics and I knew no one, not a soul. A couple invited me to join them on their blanket and that was it. I was hooked. And it's become my family and my entire community ever since.
When I moved to Los Angeles during the pandemic, a friend of mine recommended that I check out IKAR. So I went to the online tribe happy hour and was going to some classes, and I just fell in love with the community.
My husband died from COVID in October, so here I was in a pandemic with no synagogue connection, and I thought, how do I sit Shiva? How do I get a minyan or have a funeral? My son and daughter-in-law are IKAR members. They called the rabbis, and IKAR provided a minyan for Shiva that week. I became a member of IKAR from afar right away, and I've been to morning minyan every day since, and I was able to say Kaddish all through Shloshim. The community has given me a feeling that I'm really with people. I feel like I've been there forever.
Our job is to make IKAR as radically welcoming for Jews of color as possible.
When I first joined, someone called me and told me he was outside my door with a Shabbat package from IKAR. It had challah and grape juice and little Shabbat candles and vegan dark chocolate, good quality fair trade chocolate. So everything is in accordance with their values, like even the chocolate is ethical.
My stepmom passed away in November and it was just so sad. She's such a sweet woman and I felt so terrible for my dad, but I couldn't go home to New York because of the pandemic and it was a really hard time. And that Shabbat right after, I went for a run on the beach and I was running when I realized that it was 10 a.m., which is when I'm usually at home in front of my computer ready to log in for Shabbat services. When I realized, wait, I have my phone right in my hand, and I just sat down right there on the sand and turned on Facebook and participated in IKAR Shabbat service. I was physically alone, but just so integrated and part of this community at the same time.
You know, if you have a personal need, they care and they look to provide an avenue for you to find that support.
On March 20th, my youngest son Tyler had his bar mitzvah on Zoom, a Zoom mitzvah. And I was worried that Tyler would feel like he was missing out by doing the bar mitzvah via Zoom. But it ended up being magical for all of us. We had a world-renowned rabbi, our beloved IKAR community, family and friends from all over the world, right here in our living room. And even my 93-year-old mother, who isn't healthy enough to travel, joined via Zoom. It was amazing. We got so much love from IKAR.
Basically, IKAR brought me together with people who share the ways in which I love to geek out on Judaism.
When my husband died very suddenly of a heart attack, one of my first calls was to IKAR, and the congregation sprang into action. God bless them, the rabbis were extremely supportive. Of course, my daughter and I were in no mood to feed or cook for ourselves, and magically food began to appear at our door through a meal train, which meant the world to us. In IKAR's morning minyan, once a day, I get to be seen as a grieving person, and that has tremendous value to me.
This past year, I learned how important community is in my life. I didn't even realize how much I need hugs until they were gone. But IKAR made the pandemic bearable. We need to share the love, share IKAR's love.
I have a lot of love in my life, but IKAR is a different love. It's a beautiful, holy love.
IKAR inspires me to connect to the person that I want to be in the world. Bring the good that I can do. That's what I'm thankful for.
Well, as we've all said, it's been a really challenging year. I mean, we've had a challenging past 45 minutes with the teleprompter, but we've all come together to support one another in pretty extraordinary ways. You know, there have also been some pretty great lighthearted moments too, some silliness, some family fun, some peak IKAR bonding. And I'm not just talking about the Hillel Tigay variety show on Shabbat mornings last spring. I'm talking about everything from baby Noah devouring Rabbi Sadok's seat to the embarrassing accidental unmutes during Shiva minyanim. Just kidding, those aren't accidental. You're doing it on purpose, I'm sure. Well, actually, in all seriousness, we did capture a few sweet moments that we'd like to share with you all right now.
I am astonished by this community, honestly. I thank you for reminding me again and again that we can still laugh and find joy and meaning even in the tough times. I'm so grateful for every single one of you. Thank you for your energy and your devotion, for your love and your care, for sitting Shmirah when we've lost beloved friends and family, for navigating grief and loss on the screen, for learning Torah with us and trying healing circles even when you didn't even know what that meant, for taking to the streets to fight for Black lives when we were scared to even leave our homes because of the pandemic, for getting out the vote and not losing hope, for making art and for writing music, for showing up, and of course for the croissants and sourdough and coffee cake you dropped off at my house when I got perhaps the most ill-timed false positive COVID test the day before Yom Kippur.
Amen. That false positive took a few years off my life. and thank you all for making this such a successful event. We are proud to say that we have already raised $250,000 towards our $300,000 goal. And this is going to fund our work for the coming year. So thank you.
You know, we hold this event only once a year. We have one awesome opportunity to make it a big year. So please try to make a difference.
By donating to IKAR today, you are helping us to continue to do the important work of the day-to-day, all while we're trying desperately, working with all we've got to manifest the big dream of building that just and loving society.
And if last year has taught us nothing else, it's how deeply connected we are to each other and how we really need one another to get through these difficult times.
Thank you for sharing your time and your hearts with us today.
And thank you for being part of our community and for your ongoing support.
Thank you for your generous contributions.
So folks, don't be shy. Click those buttons, hit up that Venmo, and support your own community, our community. Give the gift that's going to make Rabbi Brous and Melissa say, wow.
Wow, wow.
The gift that shows us, yeah, just like that. Wow. Just imagine that when you give that gift. The gift that shows us how grateful you are that this, our big annual fundraiser, was only an hour in and out. And you could come in your dolphin shorts and cowboy boots, as I was planning on doing before I got the dress code memo. The gift that says, my world is a little brighter because you, IKAR. Ethan, did you have any closing words from your remote location?
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Wow, what a fantastic afternoon this has been. There are so many people who have made this celebration possible that I want to thank. First, thank all of you for your contributions, everyone who's made a contribution and bid on auction items. Thank you to Rosalind and Josh Chaplin for the wine donations, and to Mimi Gilbert for donating produce for our sponsors' gift baskets. And thank you to our sponsors, over 70 of you this year, for making a real difference in furthering our work. I thank my amazing friends on the IKAR board. I truly look forward to seeing all of you at meetings, and I can't wait for us to get together again in person with dinner and drinks, I promise. Extra thanks to IKAR's board vice chair, Mo Langer. I couldn't ask for a better partner in leadership. You are always outspoken in a good IKAR way, insightful, compassionate, and forward-thinking. An enormous thanks to our event chair, Kareem Abai, and the entire development committee who planned today's beautiful event. Karen Hogan from New York, no less, Eric Kranzler, Jenny Weston, Lisa Friedman, Sam Hutman, Scott Minko, and Dara Resnick. And thank you for Matt Price for serving as our MC this afternoon. We are so lucky to have you. One of the great joys of my job is the chance to spend so much time with the incredible IKAR staff. Thank you to Elad Devash Banks, IKAR's powerhouse development director, and his crack team, Lauren Epstein, Monica Hirsch, Zvi Zobin, and Carrie Bone. And thank you to our producer, Tal Ya'ari, and his group at YZ Content, as well as to Andrea Stern-Goldberg, Jess Solomon, Ariana Sikorsky, and Gabby Romero, who are online behind the scenes today. Thank you to the absolute best clergy in the Jewish world. Thank you, Chazan Hillel Tigay, for making music that burrows deep into our souls, bringing us songs I find myself singing on random Tuesday mornings, and for being my 4-year-old's musical idol. Thank you to our rabbinic intern, Sammy Cantor, Rabbi Kayla LaBelle, whom we will so miss, Rabbi David Kasher, and Rabbi Ronit Sadok. And of course, to Rabbi Sharon Brous and Melissa Balaban, you are indeed the IKAR of IKAR, the very essence of our community. Without you, we would not be here. Thank you. And now for a final goodbye, back to Melissa.
Huge gratitude to you, my fellow IKARites, for your generosity, for your presence, for your love. We hope you were moved. We hope you had some fun. And we hope, most of all, to see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock at Minyan. And I can't believe I'll be there. So we're going to close now with another song from our own Hillel Tigay from his new album. Enjoy the song and enjoy the rest of your afternoon or evening. Mwah.
1, 2, 3. Did you notice that the world is spinning faster than before? And the feeling that the sun was gonna shine don't come no more. There's a shadow on my pillow, a dream in black and white. I want my blue skies back, been around the world and seen it fade to black. I can't find my way without my blue skies back. Tell the man who sold the world to give it back. No, I want my blue skies back. Can you hear me? Well, the grass is always greener when it's gone. Now I see it, and I pray for yesterday the whole night long. Raise your glasses to the future, 'cause the best days